Now I'm going to be talking to you about reporting and what we have done for B 2013-02, all the changes that we are introducing for reports. So let's dig in. In summary, we have done a lot of work in B 2013-02 to provide you a ton of new changes and information and reports. We are adding 11 new reports. We are deprecating one of them, but we're replacing it by another one that has kind of the same information and more. We have improved the stats for the display network. I'm going to go into that in details. We are now exposing very important new reports for you for feed services. I think it was briefly mentioned, things like now you're going to be able to report on specific lines, for example, side links for each side link. We're exposing reports for share budgets. So now you can fully use that capability of share objects. You also have reporting on it. We're exposing reports for campaign negative locations. Additionally, we're exposing some reports for the beta program. If you're a beta user, you're interested on those. And lastly, for the good, because I'm going to explain what is the replacement. We're deprecating the conversion type ID. When I say deprecating in report means that B 2013-02 doesn't have it. It's gone from B 2013-02, it's being replaced for something else, but it's still available in all the versions of the API. You still have access to the conversion type ID in all the versions. It's no longer in 2013-02. When you are migrating to B 2013-02, you got to think on how to accommodate for the new changes. So 11 reports added. Audience performance report. Budget performance report, as I mentioned, for share budgets. Campaign negative locations now added to the reports. This is a structural report, as you might imagine. It has no stats, but it's for you to get your negative locations. In beta, we have the campaign share set report. This is basically also structural. It's for everything that's shared with campaigns, which includes, for example, negative keywords. Display topics performance report. This is specific to the display network, to a Google Display Network. I'm going to go into details about what is in these reports and why are they different and why we have specialized reports for them. We have reports also in beta for keywordless ads, which are the dynamic ads. So we have reports for categories, keywordless queries. We have the placeholder feed item report mentioned before for feed services. We have a placement performance report. This is also for the display network. It's been enhanced for the display network. We have the share set criteria report for negative criteria that's associated to your campaigns, like negative keywords. We have the share set report as well. They all go in combination on how you manage share sets, which is the way how you tie things to campaigns right now. Everything that you see in your library on the left-hand side of the AdWords UI, when you have that panel on the left-hand side that's manage your library, everything, all that sits in there is what we call share sets. And then we are deprecating the managed placements performance report, which, as I say, everything has a replacement. It's being replaced by the placement performance report. It's not that it's gone. You get the information from a different report. So let's dig into what are the changes specific to the display network. This is a change that has already been rolled out to the UI. You might know it already. You might understand what the concept is. But it's basically we're changing the way in which we are matching your impressions for your criteria in a display network. It used to be, we used to have what we call a single attribution model, in which if you have different criteria for the display network, it can match to the user intent on what he's searching, and then we display the the ad because that intent, we were attributing the impression only to one of those criteria. The clear example here is, as I mentioned, you have a vertical that's pets and dogs, right? So that vertical is for people that's searching for dogs, but he's also visiting pets.com/dogs. It's actually matching, as you can see in this case, it's matching one placement and two verticals because the verticals are hierarchical. So what's going to happen, we're going to attribute the impression to one of every type of criteria. So we're going to attribute one impression to the placement and one impression to the vertical that matches more specifically to the user intent. So we're going to attribute, in this case, the impression to pets, dogs. So that's how it works. It might happen that you have multiple criteria of the same type that's matching. We're going to attribute it to the one that's more specific. In this case, pets, dogs. More details. So as I said, Managed Placements Performance Report is being replaced by the Placement Performance Report. We're exposing about the same fields in both reports, just with the specific that the Managed Placement Performance Report was not meant to be used for this multi-attribution. So it was actually not reporting on impressions that got associated to a different criteria. The Placement Performance Report instead is actually reporting to you those impressions in this new multi-attribution world. What it means in terms of the user is that the numbers you get in the Placement Performance Report they match exactly with the UI. The numbers that you used to get, or you get with when using the older Managed Placement Performance Report, might not match the UI. New reports, again, that also that are matching the UI are the Automatic Placement Performance Report. In B 2013-02, we have made changes to also accommodate it to this new multi-attribution. So that one matches the UI, as well as the URL Performance Report. The interest and remarketing tabs, the interest and remarketing tab in the UI also now matches with the Audience Performance Report for B 2013-02, and the Topics tab in the display matches with the Display Topics Performance Report that this is a new report that we are putting out for B 2013-02. In terms of feeds, which Aaron's going to explain it in details, how you use feed services, what are they useful for. Briefly mentioned, you use it for extensions. So we are providing this placeholder feed add-in report, so you can dig into statistics specific for every item you have in your feeds. And every item, an example of one item could be a single site link, for example. Then budget. New report for campaign for what it falls under what I mentioned, the share library. So in the share library, you have budgets that you can share across multiple campaigns. We are now offering you a report on those. That report has things like the budget ID, the budget name, the budget status, the amount of that budget, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's basically kind of a structural information about your budget and how is it going, how is it performing. We have a new report about campaign negative locations. So it matches the locations are excluding from your campaign. It's again another structural report for you to, if you want to avoid going to the sub-services, you can use this report to get that info. Other update. As I briefly mentioned, we are deprecating the conversion type ID, and that's a good thing. Why it's a good thing? Because this ID used not to be an ID. For those of you who are familiar using it or not, even though we publish as a conversion type ID, we were reporting names in them. So what you got there was the name of the conversion tracker or as better known as the JavaScript tag, right, that you put. So that conversion name, exposing that as a name brought a problem, of course, because the conversion tracker name is not unique. So it wasn't even unique in the reports. You could get two, you were able to get, if you configure 2 conversion trackers with the same name, you were able to get 2 rows with the same name in a report. Of course, that was a problem. We fixed that. We now deprecated conversion type ID. Now we call it conversion tracker ID, which is a real ID. It's the ID that matches if you call the conversion tracker service. And we have also published the conversion type name, which is the name. And as I mentioned, it's not unique. But now, those repeated rows that you get, and you're able to differentiate them because we're also publishing the real ID of them. Which reports get affected by this change? All those reports that are mentioned there, the aggregate performance report, the automatic placement performance report, the campaign performance report, the criteria performance report, destination URLs, keywords performance report, managed placements, search query, and the URL performance report. All of them used to report on conversion type ID. We have then done this change.